All right, let's backtrack a little and recall what we've covered so far. We've said this many times throughout the course, but it's worth repeating. A structural member can experience several types of stresses acting on it. It can be subjected to tension, compression, shear, bending, or even torsion. And in the real world, these don't always happen in isolation. More often than not, a member experiences a combination of these stresses simultaneously. With that said, where do we begin with stress combinations? Now, from our introduction in the previous video, we talked about how members can be subjected to the combined effects of flexure and axial load. The axial action can come in two forms, either tension or compression. Each of these, whether acting alone or combined with bending, will have a different effect on the member. In this module, we're going to focus specifically on the case of combined tension and flexure. So let's start by identifying the different scenarios where this combination actually shows up. First, a member can be subjected to a tension load that is off-center, or eccentric. Because the force doesn't pass through the centroid, it naturally introduces a bending moment alongside the axial tension. Second, a member can also be directly subjected to an axial tension load and at the same time, a separate lateral load that causes flexure. Think of a tie beam that also carries a transverse load from a floor or a wind force. And third, it can simply be a beam that's primarily loaded in bending, say with a uniform distributed load, but that also happens to be in tension at the same time. Maybe it's part of a system where an axial tie force is also present. So these are the three typical loading configurations where tension and flexure act together on a member. Keep these in mind, because the interaction equations we'll use apply to all of them. Now remember, in the previous module we discussed the interaction equations found in AISC 360, Chapter H. Specifically, we looked at equations H1-1a and H1-1b. But let me emphasize something important here. H1 is actually intended for doubly and singly symmetric members subject to flexure and compression. What does that mean? It means the section needs to be symmetric about at least one axis, like a wide flange I-beam, or a channel section, or a double angle section, or even T-sections. So H1 covers members that are at least singly symmetric and are under combined compression and bending. That's its primary scope. Now you might be wondering, what about tension combined with flexure? Is there a separate provision for that? Well, yes, there is. It is covered under Clause H1.2 of the AISC specification for members subject to combined tension and flexure. However, the important point is this. H1.2 refers you right back to the same interaction equations in H1.1. The format of the check is the same. You still use those interaction equations, but with tension capacity terms. So in practice, H1.2 does not give a completely new framework. It tells you to apply the same interaction concept for the tension case. There is also an alternative within Chapter H that you should know. If a member is a doubly symmetric rolled compact member under single-axis flexure and compression, then you can use Clause H1.3, equation H1-2. The equation is PR over PCY times open parenthesis 1.5 minus 0.5 of PR over PCY close parenthesis plus the square of MRX over CBMCX, all less than or equal to 1.0. So H1.3 is an alternative interaction equation, but it applies only under those specific conditions: doubly symmetric, rolled compact, and single-axis bending. Alright, so let's summarize the provisions we have. For members under combined compression and flexure, the main check is Clause H1.1, and the simplified alternative is Clause H1.3 when all conditions are satisfied. For members under combined tension and flexure, we use Clause H1.2, which still follows the same interaction equation framework. So really, The H1 interaction equations are the backbone of all these checks. Whether it's compression or tension combined with bending, you keep coming back to the same format. Now, a practical note. In general, Clause H1.3 is used less often in practice. The conditions are restrictive, doubly symmetric, rolled compact, and single-axis bending only. For simplicity and consistency, many engineers default to the broader H1.1 interaction approach for most applications. So in this course, we will primarily use that general interaction method as well. All right, with all of that said, let's put this into practice. Let's work through an example problem so we can apply these interaction equations step by step. Let me state the problem. Determine the adequacy of an unpunched W310 by 60 tension member. The steel is 50 KSI grade. It is subjected to the following combined service loads. An axial tension of D is equal to 110 kilonewtons, and L is equal to 135 kilonewtons. And y-axis bending moments of MDY is equal to 14 kilonewton meter, and MLY is equal to 34 kilonewton meter. We are also told to assume that the bending capacity of the beam is 95 kilonewton meter. So let's start solving this. First, we need the other section properties like the cross-sectional area. From the table, the gross area of a W310 by 60 is 7,550 square millimeters. Now let's compute the nominal tensile strength. Pn is equal to Fy times Ag, that is 345 megapascals times 7,550 square millimeters, which gives us 2,604,750 newtons, or about 2,604.75 kilonewtons. Great. Now let's proceed with the LRFD required strengths and the interaction check. We need PR for the interaction equation, which we will get from Pu, the factored axial load under LRFD. PR is obtained from the ultimate load combination, Pu, which is 1.2 D plus 1.6 L. We already have D and L, so PR is equal to 1.2 times 110 plus 1.6 times 135, which equates to 348 kilonewton. So that is the factored axial tension demand the member must resist. Now let's get the required moment the same way. MR is obtained from the ultimate moment combination, MU, which is 1.2 MDY plus 1.6 MLY. Plugging in the given moments, MR is equal to 1.2 times 14 plus 1.6 times 34, which equates to 71.2 kilonewton meter. Now we identify the axial demand ratio to figure out which form of the interaction equation to use. The axial ratio, PR over PC, is evaluated as Pu divided by phi Pn. Substituting, we get 348 divided by 0.90 times 2,604.75, which gives 0.148, and that is less than 0.20. Since the ratio is below 0.20, we use equation H1-1b, where the axial term is halved, divided by 2 PC. The H1-1b expression is PR over 2 PC plus MRX over MCX plus MRY over MCY, and this total must not exceed 1.0. Substituting our values, we get 348 over 2 times 0.90 times 2,604.75 plus 0 for the strong axis, since there is no strong axis moment, plus 71.2 over 0.90 times 95, which all sums to 0.907, less than 1.0. The interaction value is below 1.0, so the section is adequate for the given combined tension and flexure loads. Alright, so that wraps up the LRFD solution. Now here's where I want you to take over. We just solved this problem using LRFD, the load and resistance factor design method. But as you know, the same problem can also be checked using ASD, the allowable stress design approach. The underlying interaction equations are the same, but the way you define demand and capacity is different. Here are the values we already have from the problem. The gross area A is 7,550 square millimeters, and the nominal tensile strength Pn is 2,604.75 kilonewton. These do not change regardless of the design method. So your task is this: solve the same example using ASD. To do that, you will need the service level demands. For ASD, the required axial strength, PA, is simply D plus L, no load factors. Same goes for the required moment, MA, just the sum of the dead and live moment, unfactored. Once you have PA and MA, compute the available strengths. PC is Pn divided by omega, where omega is 1.67 for tension. MC is Mn divided by omega B, where omega B is also 1.67. Then plug everything into the same H1-1A or H1-1B interaction check. The same decision rule applies, just with ASD terms. Alright, that's it for now. Send your comments down below, and I'll see you on the next one.